Welcome to the Business Finance Bulletin, episode 135. Welcome again to the latest Business Finance Bulletin with me, Rob Warlow from Business Loan Services. In this bulletin, bank lending to small businesses, bad debt write-offs and awareness of alternative finance. Let's start this bulletin by taking a look at the latest bank lending figures to small businesses as released by the Bank of England. Now, the Bank of England every month releases these statistics which looks at the total amount of money currently outstanding to small businesses that have been lent by banks. Now, just a point of caution here, the Bank of England define a small business as a business turning over less than £25 million a year. Yeah, that's small. So let's look at the figures as at the end of July 2016, and they reveal that the high street banks are lending a total of £161 billion to small businesses, and that's an increase of 2.1% on the same period 12 months ago, i.e. July 2015. Now, this is interesting because it shows that bank lending to businesses is growing, and that's been coming out over the last couple of months. And in fact, from April 2016, the 12-month increase was 1.5%. In May, it was 1.6%. In June, it was 1.7%. And now to the end of July, it's jumped up by 2.1%. Now, obviously, a word of caution here. The July figures were obviously after the Brexit vote, but the impact is yet to be seen, because obviously, if those of you who've borrowed money from banks will know, it's not a very quick process. It could take 2, 3, sometimes 4 months or so. So we mustn't try and get too much confidence from the figures that banks are increasing lending to small businesses. We need to see what happens during August and September and October onwards. That's when the real statistics will come out. But on the face of it, certainly more support coming from banks to small businesses. Move on now to something that was a little bit more depressing, and that's about amount of money that small business owners are writing off in the form of bad debts. I've covered this in previous bulletins, but an interesting topic because it reminds us constantly about the importance of keeping an eye on the creditworthiness of our customers. This latest survey has come out is from a Direct Line for Business, and they asked business owners how much are they writing off. Now, 19% of businesses surveyed said they have written debts off, and the average amount, £31,330. That's a lot of money. And in fact, 9% of those surveyed said that they have written off in excess of £100,000. Well, that's a massive hit to cash flow and, of course, profitability. Looking at the wider picture of those businesses that have written off money, 29% of them was down to customer insolvency, whereby their customers or clients went into insolvency and were unable to pay. So, of course, there's not a lot you can do there. You just have to cross your fingers and hope that there's going to be a dividend payable. And in many cases, there isn't. Looking at the wider picture, 82% of the businesses surveyed said they have money outstanding to them, and on average the sum in total is about £61,000. So you can see there's a lot of money tied up in the system. Well, the message, as always, is make sure you've got clear systems and processes in place as regards getting invoices out on time and chasing them as well, and doing credit checks to make sure you're only supporting the businesses that are the very credit worthy and top class businesses, to make sure you don't get caught and having to write off a bad debt. If I was to ask you as a small business owner, are you aware of alternative finance? I wonder how many of you would say yes. Well, that's a question being posed by Deloittes in conjunction with YouGov. They went out and asked 1,600 small business owners what the level of awareness was that they had as regards alternative finance. And the results? Well, surprisingly, over 75% of those businesses surveyed said that yes, they were aware of alternative finance, whether that's crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, asset finance, invoice discounting. But here's the thing. Only 4% of them have said they have actually used alternative finance. Now, we're seeing a greater understanding and awareness of alternative finance, and we're seeing more and more business owners coming to us who are looking for finance saying, can we have a look at crowdfunding, please? So it really is on the rise. Looking ahead, again, at that survey, 8% of the business owners said that they would consider borrowing money from crowdfunding and alternative platforms over the months and years to come. So it's clear awareness, credibility and trust is really building up in the alternative finance market. Now, if you want to know how you can access those sorts of finance, by all means, let's have a chat. Just drop us a line, info@businessloanservices.co.uk, and we're happy to talk through the options with you. Well, that's it for this bulletin, and as ever, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like and give it a share. It all helps about getting the message out of what you can do to raise finance and have a better relationship with your bank. If you're watching on the video, don't forget we've got the podcast version as well, available on iTunes, Stitcher and SoundCloud. Just go along to those channels and search for a Business Finance Bulletin. And if you are on the podcast version, then you can watch the YouTube version. Just go along to YouTube, search for Rob Warlow, and there you'll find this bulletin and past bulletins and a range of other videos with tips on raising finance as well. So that's it for this bulletin. Thanks very much for being with me. Look forward to being with you again. Have a great, successful and profitable week. Bye bye now.